So what's the best way to maximize your salon suite profits? Well, after making $1.7 million in this industry, I believe these 7 things will help skyrocket your suite's revenue. So let's jump right in. Now, before we dive in, for those who don't know what a salon suite business is, it's basically when you take a large space and you break it into small rooms and you lease each one of those rooms to different beauty professionals like hairstylists and barbers, and they pay you every single week. Now, if that sounds like something you'll be interested in, click the first link in the description below. I'm hosting a free live training where I'm going to be breaking down this business model step by step. All right, now see you inside. Back to the video. Stick around for the most important rule for maximizing your profits. Now, the first thing is you want to use OPM. OPM is other people's money. Now, this is when you go to the bank and you get funding. So it's not that you go ask your cousin or your friend or your family member for funds. You go to the bank and you get a loan, you get a line of credit, you get a credit card. Why is this important? This is not a broke person strategy. This is a wealthy strategy. Even the wealthy who already have multi-millions of dollars, when they make investments, they always go to the bank. They don't use their own money. Now, for example, my first location, I did not go to the bank. I was not familiar with OPM, and I was scraping up money, had to borrow from friends and family, and it was just a disaster trying to get the funding to open my first location. Now, once again, why would you use your own money, right? Some people say, well, why wouldn't I use my own money? Why would I get into debt? There's a such thing as good debt and bad debt, right? Like I said, this is a wealthy person strategy. So example, if you had $100,000 in the bank, yes, you can go and start your salon suite business. But imagine going to the bank and borrowing $100,000 from the bank. Guess what this means? You get to keep your money in your pocket, right? So let's say you have to pay back $1,000 a month off of that $100,000, but you have a salon suite that's producing $250,000 a year. Well, would you be okay paying $1,000 out of the $10,000 or $12,000 that you're going to make every single month just to pay back your loan? Now you have your $100,000 that was in your bank that you can use for other things, right? And you don't have to risk your money. So even if you have the money in the bank, I encourage you to use OPM. The second thing is we have to find a location, right? Now, it's super important that you use a commercial realtor. Why? Because a landlord will know that you're not a commercial realtor and they will take advantage. They also are not as willing to negotiate because they're going to take advantage of the fact that you're not knowledgeable. So a commercial realtor, they will help you negotiate the lease, which is super important to make sure that you get an extremely good deal. They also find the best deals. They have knowledge on the local market to make sure that you're getting a good rate. And like I said, they know exactly what to look for to make sure they can negotiate things like tenant improvement, like free rent. They can negotiate a new AC unit. They can negotiate the yearly increases. Remember, every commercial property has a yearly increase, meaning the rent goes up every single year. So how do you find a commercial realtor? The first thing I recommend is asking for referrals, right? If you know somebody that's leased or purchased a commercial property, ask them what commercial realtor they use and also ask them how was their experience, because that's equally important. Now, if you can't find a commercial realtor that way, you can also look on loopnet.com, Crexy.com, and you can find a broker, which is also a realtor, straight from those sites. Another thing you can do is do an online search, do a local search, find a commercial realtor. Be sure to read their reviews and testimonials to make sure that they are qualified. Now, listen, you must make sure that they have experience. Only an experienced commercial realtor will know how to negotiate TI and things like that. If you try to go and support your cousin who just got her license, she's not going to know how to negotiate. This is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you have experts on your team. Now, the third thing is you want to run the numbers. Listen, a common mistake that I see is people will sign a lease, so excited to sign a lease and say that they're an owner without running the numbers and really understanding what they're getting into. So it's super important that before you sign the lease, you understand what your projected income is and what the projected expenses are so that you have an idea about how much money you're going to be bringing in every single month. You want to be able to identify these things so that you know if this location is going to be profitable before you sign a lease. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, every commercial lease has yearly increases. So you want to make sure you run those numbers on every single year in that lease term. If it's a 7-year lease, you need to run those numbers on all 7 years. Another thing is you also want to run the numbers on 100% capacity. That's our goal, right? We want to be at 100% capacity, although most salon suites are only at about 90 to 95% capacity, and they're still extremely profitable. But what I would like you to do is also run the numbers on 80% capacity and on 70% capacity. That way, there's no surprises. You know exactly what the numbers are going to look like if you're at full capacity and if you're at 70% capacity. You can still be extremely profitable even if you're only at 75% capacity. So for example, if you have 20 suites and they're all going for $250 a week, you're bringing in $20,000 a month. Let's say the expenses are about $7,000. Let's say rent is $5,000. You add an extra $2,000 for utilities. We're bringing home $18,000 a month, right? Now that's given that we're at full capacity. So let's take it a step further, and let's say 5 of those suites are vacant. So we only have 15 suites out of the 20 that are leased. Well, guess what? We are still bringing in, this is net profit. We're still bringing in $12,000 to $13,000 a month, even though we're only at 75% capacity. So a lot of times you guys freak out about, well, what if my suites are at full capacity? Will I still make money? Yes. That's why it's so important, again, that you run the numbers before you sign the lease. Listen, I can't tell you how many times people come in my DMs asking for help, and they send me their lease. And listen, once you sign that lease, you are stuck in that lease term. It does not matter if you did not run the numbers. The landlord does not care. They are still coming for your money. I've seen so many people make this terrible mistake. And again, they're stuck in the lease. So do yourself a favor, run those numbers, because at the end of the day, it's all a numbers game. All right. Now, the fourth thing is you're going to negotiate TI. Now, what is TI? That's tenant improvement, also known as tenant allowance. Now, this is when the landlord actually gives you money towards your build out that you do not have to pay back. So people say, well, why would the landlord give you money towards your build out? Here's the thing. They want you to be a long-term tenant. They want you to be successful. They also see it as an investment. They know that you're going to be paying them rent for the next 5 to 7 years. So they're okay contributing to your build out costs. But this is not something that they will volunteer. That's why it's so important that you have a commercial realtor so that they know how to negotiate this on your behalf. All right. Again, I want to reiterate to use a commercial realtor. Now, in the event that you find a property online that you're interested in, that's fine. Make sure you send it to your realtor and let them reach out on your behalf. Now, back to negotiating TI. Sometimes the landlord will give you up to 100% in TI towards your build out. I had a student named Lola. She received $150,000 towards her build out. That's exactly how much her build out costs. So she technically paid $0 out of pocket to open a salon suite business that would generate her over $200 or more every single year. So again, everything in the world is negotiable, but you must know how to negotiate. The landlord is not going to volunteer this. All right. So the fifth thing is you want to have a bulletproof lease. Listen, don't take a shortcut. Make sure you have an attorney review your lease. There's small little words in there, sentences that could totally change everything about the lease that maybe you're not aware of. I guarantee if you have an attorney look over your lease, they're going to find something that's in your favor that needs to be changed. All right. So don't skip that step. Even if your realtor says they reviewed it, they're not an attorney. So you want to have an attorney that specializes in leases to review your lease to make sure you understand what you're signing. Now, they may ask you to be a PG. It's also called a personal guarantor. This is basically when you're guaranteeing as a person that the payments will be made in the event that the business, this is in the event that you get the lease under the business, they will ask you to guarantee it, meaning that if the business fails to make a payment, you will guarantee it. Now, listen, this is normal. This is very normal, especially if you don't have a very well-established, profitable business, okay? You can negotiate this. So let's say you have a 10-year lease and they ask you to be a personal guarantor for 10 years. You can come back and say, well, hey, how about we do a PG for 5 years or 7 years? A lot of people come to me after they sign the lease and there's not anything that I can do because they already signed the lease. And it's so heartbreaking to see people who get stuck in these leases. So do not rush the lease process because it has to make sense, okay? Number 6. Now, you want to make sure your contractors are doing their job. The contractors can either be your biggest headache or your biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? A heartbreak, or they can be your biggest partner. I guess that's the word, right? Contractors are not to be trusted. Listen, they're always working multiple jobs, right? So you want to make sure you find a way to hold your contractor accountable. One way you can do that is by doing weekly checkups. So every week, be very clear on what the plan is for the following week. If the contractor says, well, this week we're going to put up drywall or we're going to do some framing, at the end of the week, you need to follow up and make sure that it was done, whether that's you showing up in person, a FaceTime, or a video, but you want to hold them accountable every single week. They are working on multiple projects, so it's so important that you set the tone from the very beginning. The more on top of them you are, the more that they are going to prioritize you because they know that you're on top of your stuff, whereas other owners may not be in touch with the contractors, all right? Now, the contractors will oversee and manage the entire build-out project. Also, they are licensed and insured. So in the event that something happens during the build-out process, the contractor is liable and not you. Now, you want to verify that they are licensed and insured, okay? You want to verify this. This is simple. You can call the insurance company. As far as licensing, you can check with the Secretary of State and confirm that they have a valid license. You can also add a clause in the agreement, right, stating that if they do not finish the build out at a certain time, that they will be penalized and they will actually pay you a fee. So it's very important that you put this clause in there so that they don't waste your time and drag out your build out longer than it needs to be. Now, you do want to make sure you get at least 3 to 4 different quotes from contractors, because I guarantee you there's going to be a broad range of quotes on the same build out. So for example, you can have a build out, you can give it to 4 different contractors. One may quote you $50,000, one may quote you $150,000, one may quote you $300,000. So it's super important that you get at least 4 different quotes. This is also an opportunity for you to negotiate or leverage, depending on what contractor you want to go to. So if you see a contractor and they're on the higher end and you say, well, hey, I got some other quotes that are a little bit lower. Can you meet me here? I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they will. It's also important that you're very clear on what's the projected time frame for completion, and also how many people are working on the build out. If you have one person working on the build out, it's going to take much longer than if you have 3 to 4 people. Now, listen, contractors are hungry. They're eager. They're sharks. They're always going to take the job, but you want to make sure that it makes sense, because we also don't want them to eat up all of that free rent. Now, here's another tip. The contractor may ask you, hey, did you get any free rent from the landlord? Let's say, for example, you got 6 months free rent. You don't want to tell the contractor that, because they're going to make sure they use up all those 6 months. So what I would do is I would tell them that, hey, I only got 3 months of free rent. After that, we have to start paying rent. This is going to put the fire to them to make sure that they get it done in a timely manner. But like I said, unfortunately, contractors are not to be trusted. Anything that they say, you want to hold them accountable. And like I said, it's super important that you set the tone from the very beginning. Now, don't hesitate to ask any questions, and keep in mind that they work for you. Yes, they are the expert as a contractor, but this is your business, your investment, and they work for you, and you are the boss. So make sure you keep that same demeanor and energy throughout the entire process. All right. Now, also, the contractor should pull the permits. If it's a good contractor company, they will pull the permits. You guys have probably heard me on podcasts and interviews talk about how I cry real tears in the city of Atlanta trying to get my permits, only to find out I wasn't even the one that was supposed to be doing it. So this is non-negotiable. Now, they may try to talk you down and give you a deal on the price and tell you to go do the permitting. Listen to me closely. Listen, Linda, listen. You do not want to do the permitting, guys. It is a headache. Stay away from the permitting. All right, y'all. And what do we have? Next is going to be number 7. You want to make sure you have firm pricing, right? Now, it's super important that the first way to determine your pricing is you want to research your competition. See, people don't like to pay their competition any attention. When I tell you that Coca-Cola has meetings about Pepsi and vice versa, Apple has meetings about Samsung. So it's super important that you're tapped into your competition. For one, you want to make sure you have competitive pricing. You want to make sure your price range works for your market area. A suite in Atlanta is not going to cost the same as a suite in Tennessee, for example. So you want to make sure that you understand your area. How can you get the best top pricing for your salon suite? The main way you're going to do that is through your amenities. The more amenities you offer, the higher rates that you can have. So for example, a break room. Think about how much time a beauty pro spends at the salon and a barbershop. Most of them spend more time working than they do at home. So you providing a break room, and it doesn't have to be big, just enough for a microwave, a small fridge, a couple of chairs, and a table. That way they can step away, regroup, have lunch, take a phone call, and without a client bothering them. All right. So you want to have a break room. Another way is furnished suites. If you decide to do furnished or unfurnished, both work. You can do all furnished, you can do all unfurnished, or you can do half and half. But of course, if you furnish the suites, you definitely want to charge a higher rate than an unfurnished suite. Now keep in mind, when you decide to furnish the suites, you do have to inspect the furniture and make sure you stay on top of it. All right. Another way that you can have the top pricing for your salon suite, things like keyless entry. I don't even like to use keys or fobs because they can still be lost. So I like to use a code or a thumbprint. You want to make sure you have 24/7 access. We're promoting as salon suite owners that, hey, as a beauty professional, you can come and be your own boss. So we don't want to have any control over anything that they have going on. Remember, we're just landlords and we're just providing the space. So I highly recommend that you have 24/7 access. I highly recommend that you have cameras in your salon suite. Also, if you have suites that have windows of private entry. So for example, if you find a property and it has a lot of windows or it has more than one door, you don't want to block those windows. You don't want to block that door. You want to build a suite around those windows and around those doors. So now we can call that a premier suite and we can lease that suite for more. Listen, the beauty pros love windows and they love private entry, okay? Also, a washer and dryer. Listen, take a simple stackable washer and dryer. It's not going to take up too much space. It's not a super high investment, but you can put it in the break room or in the utility room. That way, the beauty pros don't have to take their towels and their linens back and forth to the house and to the salon. These little things will not only attract beauty pros to your salon suite, but it will help you be able to increase your pricing and have top pricing for your salon suites. And this last one is super underrated, but simply keeping your salon suite clean. Simply keeping it clean will not only make your salon suite look more upscale, more professional, more luxurious, but make sure we are cleaning these suites. All right. So if you do all of those things, I guarantee you can have the top pricing in your area. Now, when we speak about competitive pricing, it doesn't mean that you have to match their pricing to the T. Again, we're just trying to make sure that we understand our market area. So at the end of the day got to end. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're doing thorough research on every single step. This is how you guarantee success. These are the mistakes that people make. They're so excited to say they're a salon suite owner and they don't do this type of research. I promise you, this is going to put you in the best position so that you can actually have a profitable salon suite business. Now, listen, if you made it until the end, I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time to tap in with me today and soak up this knowledge. My goal is to drop videos every single Friday, so make sure you guys stay tuned for next Friday. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment if you haven't already. It means a lot to me. Thanks in advance, guys. Be sure to also follow me on all social media platforms at Sway_the_pro, and I'll see you inside. Let's get it. Listen, if you've been hearing about the salon suite industry and you're wondering if this is a good fit for you, I've helped tens of thousands of students all across the country get their start in this industry. For example, my student Lola, she was an introvert, super shy, barely talked to people, and we were able to get her $150,000 in tenant improvement, meaning the landlord paid for her build out and she didn't have to come out of pocket. Or another student, Cynthia. Cynthia was actually in the industry and she is now generating over $15,000 from only 11 suites. Listen, if you want to be the next success story, I'm hosting a free live training. It's virtual, so you can tap in anywhere in the world where you can learn how to get your start in this industry without any experience, any licensing, and without using your own money. So click the link. See you inside. Let's win.